So we've got an absolutely terrible circumstance here. We've got about $4,000 worth of beautiful dead cichlids, which has come out of this aquarium. And basically I want to just go through and tell you what to do to make sure that this never happens to you. So this aquarium was run on a few canister filters, and the canister filters had about half as much media in it as they could have, and it was predominantly noodles. Now the noodle medias really don't produce anywhere near as much bacteria as something like marine pure, so I would make sure that your filters are full of marine pure, so the capacity of your filter is about 20-fold the noodles. The next thing is that the water level at the time was quite high. The water level's been dropped since, and the return from the filters was agitating the surface a little bit, and that was believed to be producing oxygen. But the thing is, the filters get so full of bacteria that the oxidization that occurs in the filter sucks all the oxygen out of the water, so the water that comes out of the filter is actually in oxygen deficit. And then there is a little bit of bubbles there and a little bit of bubbles there, and bubbles actually only aerate when they pop. So therefore this tank just didn't have anywhere near as much enough oxygen to handle this amount of fish, and there was a power head there which is obviously not anywhere near the surface, so therefore it wasn't creating gas exchange at all. And there was a it didn't have a strainer, so when we actually opened that canister filter up, it had dead fish in the canister, which are obviously rotting and causing a problem. And it's only a 300 watt heater, and this is a 1,000 litre aquarium. So oxygen and maximising surface agitation and making sure you've got the best biological filter material, so marine pure and polyfilter for your chemical media, is how you avoid issues like this. So what they're going to do next is put in a large Eheim water pump to give the water a lot of kinetic energy, because basically if we can, whereas before there was countercurrent, so there was some water going this way, some water going that way, and so the energy was fighting each other, we're just going to put all the water in this sort of fashion, and then what that's going to do is create kinetic energy and increase the amount of oxygen in the water, and then we're going to avoid circumstances like this in the future. So this was basically populating the tank and populating the tank and populating the tank, and then eventually you're exceeding the capacity, and then I think a few dead fish have gone in the filter, and the fish are all quite fat, so they're possibly fed too much as well, and then the oxygen level drops to a dangerous level. Then some of the fish start to die, and then once the fish start to die, then they start to produce more waste, and then that demands the oxygen even more, then more of them die, until eventually you get a wipeout to this magnitude, which is an absolute shame. Now the other thing about having an aquarium with so many fish and limited amount of biological capacity is that the low oxygen is actually going to lower the redox potential, and the redox potential is how fast the bacteria can work. So if you've got a high demand for waste and you've got low oxygen, therefore low redox, your bacteria works very slowly. And if the bacteria is working very slowly, that means that you need a whole lot more bacteria to do the same job. And at the same time he was also adding a bacteria supplement, so he would have been maximising all these bacteria, and there was probably no room in the half-filled filters to grow more bacteria, so that bacteria would have died off and just added to the problem. And the water stability was extremely bad for the last 2 weeks, because the tank was overstocked, under-oxygened and under-filtered, and potentially overfed. So this sure is a big shame, but if we can encourage you to go home and have a look at your aquarium, make sure your filters are full of the best media you can get, make sure that you've got as much agitation on the surface as possible, and make sure you're not overfeeding your fish, just so you can avoid having a circumstance like this, which is absolutely heart-tearing. It's enough to make you cry. Not just for the $4,000, but for how beautiful these fish really are.